If you're joining us for the first time, this is a YouTube channel and a podcast helping new and intermediate IELTS test takers understand the exam and attain higher results. Are you new to Task 1 writing? It can be overwhelming when you're looking at all those graphs and trying to understand what they mean, and then perform your task of analyzing, then reporting the main trends. In this episode, we're going to look at the most common mistakes that students make for Task 1 writing. If you haven't visited IELTSbuddy.com, you need to check it out as soon as you can, as it's a great site to prepare for your exam. Today, we'll be looking at a couple of activities that you can find on this fantastic page. So remember to check out IELTSbuddy.com for some great practice activities and tips. Okay, so in this video, we're going to carefully look at a couple of IELTS graphs and their titles. But wait, the description provided by our IELTS student is not correct. In our first example, we see a line graph indicating the consumption of fast food by Australian teens from 1975 to 2000. On the x-axis, we can see the years starting at 1975 and ending at the year 2000. On the y-axis, we see the number of times each particular fast food was eaten or consumed, ranging from 0 all the way up to 120 times per year. For our podcast listeners, we see 3 lines on the graph, and each of them represents a fast food. Pizza is represented by a blue line, fish and chips by a red line, while hamburgers are shown by a green line. Underneath this line graph, we read the following information provided by a student who has written a description, but it's actually incorrect. Let's read this now together. From 1975 to 2000, hamburgers increased dramatically from 10 to 100 times per year. At the same time, fish and chips fell significantly to just under 40. Do you see what the problem is with this overview? Can hamburgers increase and fish and chips fall? No, but the consumption of hamburgers or fish and chips can fall or rise. There are a number of ways that this sentence could have been written correctly, but here's one possibility. From 1975 to 2000, the consumption of hamburgers increased dramatically from 10 to 100 times per year. At the same time, the number of times that fish and chips were eaten fell significantly to just under 40. Look guys, it's really important to write accurate descriptions about what you see, otherwise your response is incorrect and you will end up losing marks on your actual exam. When you're analyzing your Task 1 before you write about it, look very carefully to identify what the subject is. In other words, what is it exactly that is being measured? A common mistake when writing about IELTS graphs in Task 1 of the test is to get the subject wrong. So, to recap, this first paragraph is about the consumption of fast foods. Okay, let's look at the second graph now, which, if you're listening to the podcast, is a bar graph, though our first example was a line graph. The title for this graph reads, Transport Modes in a European City from 1960 to 2000. On the right side, we see a box with different years inside, represented by different colors. This is known as the legend for the graph. So on our graph, we'll see that the purple bars represent the year 1960. The red bars will reflect 1980, while the yellow bars will be representative of the year 2000. Now, this is a little bit unique in terms of bar graphs, because quite often we'll see time represented in units such as weeks, months, or years appearing on our x-axis. But this is not the case for this particular example. Instead, this bar graph uses various modes of transportation along its x-axis, such as by bus, car, bike, and even by foot. Are you with me so far? Okay, let's keep going. On the y-axis, we see the percentage of total travelers ranging from 0 all the way up to 40%. For this example, the student wrote the following, which is incorrect. While buses fell from just over 25% to around 16% in the year 2000, cars increased dramatically to over 35%. Meanwhile, bikes fell over this time frame. Do you see what the problem is for this description? Can a car increase or a bus and a bike fall? Well, a person can fall off a bike, but in this scenario, the use of a car or the use of a bike or a bus can increase or decrease. But according to the description written by our student, the indication here is that the quantity of buses, bikes, or cars increased or decreased, and this is not what's being shown in this particular bar graph. Unfortunately, the IELTS candidate would lose marks with this description of the graph. So how could this have been written differently and, more importantly, correctly? Let's take a look at one possible option now. While bus usage fell from just over 25% to around 16% in the year 2000, cars as a mode of travel increased dramatically to over 35%. Meanwhile, the use of bikes fell over this time frame. Once again, when you're analyzing your task 1 before you even write about it, look carefully to identify what the subject is. What is it exactly that's being measured? Okay guys, this wraps up things for this week. Hey, did this help you out? Leave your questions or comments below if you're watching on YouTube. Once again, a big thanks to IELTSBuddy.com. Check out our Hacking IELTS courses, which are available over on Udemy and bluebrain.app. Details are also in the show notes of today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Take care, guys, and catch you in the next one.